What is up, everybody? I'm NoLucksGiven here with your afternoon snap, and today we are taking a look at the third place finals from this week's Community Gaming Latin America Marvel Snap Tournament. We've got Graham playing Black Knight and Yampol playing Lockjaw Thanos Blob. Both pretty popular and pretty powerful decks, I would say, but we'll put them head to head in this video and see which one comes out on top. And in tomorrow's video, like I said, this is the third place finals. Tomorrow we're going to look at the grand final, so subscribe and stay tuned if you want to see that as well. I do already know who wins this game, but I don't know the exact specifics, so you can watch along live here with me as I provide some commentary. And we are starting off right away with Sokovia discarding Reality Stone for Yampol, but Shang-Chi for Graham, which is not really a card that you want to discard, and it's not a card that you want your opponent to see that you've discarded. Also, Mind Stone from Yampol, the best stone to start off with, means that Yampol, I do think, is in a pretty commanding position. Graham does have the Black Knight, which is a key card in their deck, but Yampol has a bunch of stones, and the fact that they only played one stone this turn would lead me to believe that they might have Time Stone that they are hanging onto in their hand. And with Kamar Taj plus Time Stone, I think we might see a snap from Yampol if my read about this situation is correct. Okay, we do see a snap. Interestingly, I just realized Ghost Rider is also a pretty cool card for Kamar Taj. Now, the order in which Graham has drawn these cards is a little bit awkward because right now Blade would discard Ghost Rider. Right now would discard Zabu, which Graham is just going to go ahead and play this turn. But maybe Graham can do some funky stuff with Ghost Rider into Kamar Taj. We do see that Time Stone after Lockjaw comes out from Yampol, so we are gonna, this is like the most valuable Time Stone we've ever seen. And then Kyera coming down alongside of that as Time Stone swaps out for Jeff. So now Yampol has a bunch of extra energy. They've got 6 energy, so they can play any of the huge cards in their deck. We could see Goliath, Blob, Thanos, or Magneto come out this turn. And it looks like Graham still doesn't really have a great play. They need to draw something big, and we see a retreat from Graham. So we're not going to see anything else. This is a closed deck list tournament as well, by the way. I do think that these players have, for the most part, played these exact decks throughout the event, though there's some language barrier issues. Graham potentially was also playing Blob Thanos earlier on in the tournament, but Blob Thanos and Black Knight were the two decks they kind of identified as like the big decks right now. And the reason that I bring up that point, conceding and not showing your opponent more cards in your deck does definitely have some benefits. And this game, I would say Graham was probably going to lean pretty hard on both the Zabu and the Sera in their hand, but Yampol just shut both of those down with one Mobius. So this is looking very, very good for Yampol, and the locations I think are also pretty good for Yampol here, with Superflow allowing them to have 6 energy on turn 4. Now they can play any card in their deck, and Mojo World, they can just dump some stones in there, and they should be able to win that location. So I'm liking Yampol's spot here. Now, Graham will be able to make their first Ebony Blade of the match using Lady Sif. That's going to discard Infinaut for a 20 power Ebony Blade, but it does cost 4, which I think might prove to be a little bit awkward on the curve. Like, you'd love to throw out Sera or something. They are going to have extra energy, but they don't really have anything. They actually don't have anything else in their deck for 3, so it's going to be tough to find another play. Magneto is really good. Magneto is available for a tool out of both players here to mess with their opponent's use of Mojo World. So Magneto on the final turn, I like not playing Magneto here, saving it for the final turn, could be a nice way to grab a win in Mojo World, and looks like that's going to be enough for Graham to decide to snap and put the pressure on. They're going to be using Ghost Rider this turn to reanimate the Infinaut. grabbing a bunch of power in the hub. Both players have Shang-Chi as well. Shang-Chi, Jeff, and Magneto looks to be the overlap between both of these decks. We're going to see Space Stone and Kyera come down from Yampol as Graham drops the Infinaut here. Still Superflow in play for both players on the final turn of the game, but like I said, Graham can only play one card this turn, so that's either just going to be Magneto, a large Ebony Blade, potentially Enchantress, though I don't see that being super relevant here. And looks like Graham is looking to play the Ebony Blade, and that could definitely lose. Just Vision Center and then a blob in some capacity could definitely take Graham for a few cubes at this point. So I don't really love that play. Yeah, this play might be slightly better, putting Jeff into Mojo World. Now Yampol has to battle for all 3 locations. If Yampol just doesn't move out of Mojo World though and plays Blob to either of those other 2 locations, they do have a win. Or if Yampol plays Magneto to either of those other 2 locations, I think they are also in a good spot, but they move out and they play the Blob, so they're losing in Mojo World and they're losing in Superflow. So that's all that matters. The Blob taking over the hub isn't going to do it. And Yampol loses 4 cubes there. So now it is Graham with 8 cubes remaining to Yampol's 6. Maybe a bit of a Blob blunder there. But it's so tough to say with all of these endgame 50-50s how exactly these things are going to play out. But Yampol had the win there in Mojo World and gave it away by moving some cards around. They got tempted by those move abilities, but there's always kind of mind games in there with all of that, I think. But Graham played into that very well and just said, I'm going to predict that you move, and you can blob me in one lane, but you can't blob me in both lanes. So there you go. We're going to see a turn 2 Zabu here from Graham. We also do have Blade on Magneto, but no Black Knight just yet. The order in which you draw the cards in this deck always winds up super important. We do have Shang-Chi for Nidavellir, but Thanos decks can play around Nidavellir Shang-Chi pretty easily by just dropping a bunch of small stuff, as we see 2 stones here to start out the game. Soul Stone and Mind Stone, so potentially Time Stone. We also see the new Fisk Tower could potentially come into play here, as like I said, both players have Magneto, both players have Jeff as well. Fisk Tower now just giving -4 power instead of the Destroy effect that it used to have. Reality Stone is going to turn the sewer into, I believe that was sewer system, into Mojo World yet again. So we're gonna have another Mojo World game. Now this time Yampol has already played a bunch of their stones though, which might mean it's not super easy for them to still win in Mojo World. Now this is a Thanos deck with a much smaller curve than a typical Thanos deck, and we're gonna see a really cool play here from Graham. Blade into Ghost Rider, which is decent power in terms of Mojo World because you're putting 3 cards there, and then we're gonna see Sera get reanimated, which is going to allow Graham to potentially play Magneto on turn 5. Now, there is some awkwardness about that still. Magneto on Lockjaw is always really good, and we're gonna see the Lockjaw get pulled into Fisk Tower. That could potentially put Graham in a spot where they have priority, and then they are no longer able to use their Shang-Chi. So that could come back to bite them here. And Yampol interestingly chose to just play Jeff and Lockjaw last turn, not throwing anything into the Lockjaw, but we are going to see Enchantress go into Lockjaw this turn after disabling Sera, and then I guess like one final stone in Nidavellir, maybe the Space Stone over in Nidavellir. Yeah, that is the only remaining play that they had in their deck. That is going to turn Thanos online, also gives them a vision, and then here goes Magneto bringing that Lockjaw into Fisk Tower. But like I said, I don't think that this is actually great for Graham, because now they can't use Shang-Chi, because they have priority on this final turn of the game. Miss Marvel is going to be able to contribute to both lanes that you're already winning, put you up to 19 in Fisk Tower. And then at that point, I think you just like maybe you either move Time Stone into Nidavellir, or you move Lockjaw into Nidavellir, so that way you can play something large in Fisk Tower if you're Yampol. You could also move Jeff over into Mojo World, and then any single play in Mojo World wins the game, so I don't see how Graham could possibly win this one. I might consider retreating for Graham, to be totally honest, just because you know you cannot overcome in Nidavellir, so your opponent only has to win one of those other two locations. Yeah, this is, get out, Graham. This is not a good situation to be in, but looks like, I mean, they pressed end turn already, so they are sticking in it here, and we will see what Yampol comes up with to take the cube lead back for the match as we move on to game 4. Vision's going to move center for Nidavellir. Jeff's going to get out of the way, and we're just cycling something into Lockjaw. That must be a Shang-Chi then. It's gotta be. Oh, it's a Blob. Oh, Blob eats your deck, so Lockjaw can't cycle. Okay, I don't think it was like super relevant to make the play in that exact way, but it's a great use of mechanics there for Yampol, and just barely grabbing a win there as well. I believe that was like 22-19 over in the Fisk Tower, maybe 22-18. The numbers went by pretty quickly, but either way, Yampol scores 4 cubes, and now we are 6 cubes to 4 cubes remaining from Graham. Asgard and Necrotia, that was it, not Sewer System. I believe Necrotia was the first location last game. And a bunch of expensive cards to start for Graham. No stones though for Yampol. No cubes or no stones. White Palace is going to give Alioth to Graham and a Magneto over to Yampol. That Alioth is now kind of gunking up on Lady Sif, but Ghost Rider could have some good effect here with Asgard. Yet Ghost Rider into Asgard would get back Alioth and then win Asgard for the turn, and then it would be up to Graham to translate it into a win from there. No snap from Graham. We're just going to see a Ghost Rider, but this is a guaranteed win in Asgard, or I think more or less guaranteed. Yeah, this is a guaranteed win in Asgard. Time Stone and Space Stone, which means that Yampol potentially tried to play like Jeff or Shadow King into Asgard, but instead we are going to see some cards drawn there from Graham, and now they've got a full hand. So this is going to be a turn 5 Sera, and then we'll see what they're able to finish out with. Magneto could be a little bit neato, but it's still not a great spot. And we see a snap from Yampol. Drawing the Black Knight so late in the game, it doesn't matter that you drew 2 cards from Asgard. You still can't make use of the Black Knight here, and you've already used your Ghost Rider. We are going to see Graham stay in it. Kyera moves over to White Palace, and we've got a brand new play over in Asgard. This could be Blob. It is a big Blob to take over Asgard. Well, now that's Blob out of the way, but it is a priority for Yampol. So this is just Alioth into White Palace, and there ain't no beating that. Well, you know you can't Shang-Chi the Blob either. So this is just Alioth into White Palace, and no, Miss Marvel does not play around that in any capacity. I think you just have to eat your losses here and get out of it. No, Graham's going to stay in it, and there's the Alioth. It takes out the Magneto and takes Graham out. So Yampol will be getting third place in this tournament with Blob Thanos. Pretty cool list. Maybe we'll take a look at both of these deck lists now. The point of this is really just to be like a spoiler shield and pad the video so that way you don't know how much time is left and how much time is left in the match. I will talk about the decks a little bit, but don't forget to subscribe. Tomorrow's video is going to be the grand finals from this event with both of the players that beat these two opponents here, so it should be fun. I haven't actually watched it yet, so I don't know, but I'm looking forward to watching that one and broadcasting it and showcasing it for all of y'all here as well. So the Black Knight list is pretty straightforward. I've seen a lot of other people playing this list, I think, as well, with Miss Marvel and Sera being like the new additions. Miss Marvel, just a busted card, nothing else really to say about that. It's a 4/14, it's basically a 3/14 most of the time in this deck, and that's why Sera is so good, just allowing you to play two different 4-cost cards on the final turn of the game. There's potentially even some upside now with Miss Marvel's ability not activating until the final turn, because that just makes it even easier for this deck to throw priority and then take over the game with Shang-Chi and Enchantress, in addition to Ghost Rider and Ebony Blade just bringing that power. So I think that this deck is still quite good, but I also want to take a look at this Blob Thanos Lockjaw list, because what's interesting about it is the curve on the deck, and I probably said this at some point during the coverage as well. The curve on the deck is very low, especially for a Blob Thanos list. My Blob Thanos list doesn't even run Lockjaw, and the curve is higher than this one. And this is a Lockjaw variant, so there are a lot of like potential misses out of your Lockjaw with Mobius, Kyera, Jeff, and Shadow King, and even Shang-Chi and Enchantress potentially coming out as really tiny cards. But interestingly was working out for Yampol. I also want to say Yampol could have made the finals of the tournament, not to take anything away from the other finalists that we'll look at in tomorrow's video, but Yampol lost power during the semifinals of the tournament and was unable to get back into it and finish out, so they had to take a loss, which put them in the third place finals, which they won. So they kind of went undefeated in the tournament, and it's a pretty interesting list, right? We on 5-cost cards only see Vision, which is, you know, like no Professor X, and then 6-cost cards, we basically have all the main characters there: Alioth, Blob, Thanos, and Magneto. No Scar in this list, but there's not really any ways to activate Scar here either. But then just like a full suite of disruption with Shang-Chi, Enchantress, and Shadow King, Kyera to play around your opponent's disruption, and then Mobius to just make all of those mana cheat decks play fair. And then, you know, Jeff, because why not? Jeff is great. So really cool list here from Yampol. I'm curious if other people are trying out Thanos Blob Lockjaw lists with smaller curves like this. But for today, that is going to be it for me. Thank you guys very much for watching. I'm NoLucksGiven. Peace.